So speaking of PRC money, I want to get back to something you brought up earlier, which is the Marshall Islands and this Chinese special economic zone. And there was an attempt to set that up. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So this is a ethnic Chinese couple who became naturalized Marshallese, who ran an NGO that was affiliated to the United Nations, and and they seem to have relationships with a lot of other countries as well, including in the Pacific. The Kiribati and Vanuatu have been mentioned in other places. So I'll give you the Marshall story, but again, it's kind of a case study to keep an eye on for other locations. So Marshalls, again, it's a country that recognizes Taiwan. It was at the site of some very serious battles. It's highly strategic. It has a lot of islands that are spread out over a large area, home to the Kwajalein. And during that period, the U.S. nuked the Marshalls 67 times, including some very major tests. This is Bikini and all that stuff that ended up irradiating one of the atolls, Rongelap Atoll. The population of Rongelap was eventually, after 2 or 3 days, evacuated somewhere else. They came back. There's a lot of back and forth, but this atoll was affected by those nuclear tests. This Chinese couple said that they were going to wanting to set up a special economic zone in Rongelap, which would, do all sorts of business and those sorts of things, and it would have its own customs and immigration, and basically a country within a country. And they started buying up very influential people, according to the indictment that we saw subsequently. And it came within one vote that the legislation to set up this special zone came within one vote of passing within the parliament and becoming real. And it seriously disrupted Marshallese politics. They eventually were indicted. They could be indicted in New York because the NGO was based in New York, and they pled out. Now, the problem with pleading out is we now don't have publicly the names of the Marshallese that operated with them. And they're very influential, and they're still in power, some of them. And so they now have a vested interest in not having more U.S. oversight on their activities, because if there is more oversight, they might be found out, and that could be very bad for them. So that's how the Chinese system, even if you go after one part of it, if you don't go back after all of it, if you don't publicize the names and give the people in the countries the tools they need to clean up their own system, you're actually hardening that pro-Chinese fleet and making it even harder for others in the country. And by the way, I've heard that there's a similar project being proposed for Palau.
So what would have been the value for the Chinese Communist Party of having this special economic zone in the Marshall Islands, which frankly, it's in the middle of the Pacific, like it's kind of nowhere. It's not even that close to Taiwan, and it's not like a U.S. territory like, Guam or Saipan. So like, what's the point?
So if you remember, Admiral Keating testified, I can't remember, 2008, 2009, about a Chinese senior official who came up to him at some point and said, why don't you take Hawaii East and we'll take Hawaii West, and don't worry, we'll tell you what's going on. So if you believe that one of the strategic maps in the head of Beijing is pushing the U.S. back to Hawaii, a win in Marshalls is huge. You first of all, you break this compact of free association. You say it's not U.S. territory, and it's not U.S. territory, but that compact of free association means that the U.S. treats those waters almost as importantly as domestic waters. And in fact, that's what when it was first set up, the president said that, we're going to protect you like we would protect ourselves. So you push the U.S. out of those waters, and much more back towards Hawaii. And if you can do it in FSM and Palau as well, you've done it. You've pushed the U.S. back to Hawaii. You'll still have Guam and Marianas, but if you avoid them and you don't trigger a response there, it becomes very difficult for the U.S. to refuel, to patrol, to have a reason to be in the area. It's a very big strategic win.
Do you think that possibility is still out there then?
Yeah. So they have elections coming up in November, and I know, because very reliable sources have said that there's just the amount of Chinese money flowing in to try to affect that election are enormous. Plus, there are those people who did not get indicted on the Rongelap thing, who are still in the system and who are going to protect themselves, and who at this point they're kind of halfway down the road to China, and turning back towards the U.S. doesn't seem to offer very much, so they might go in even deeper. And there's even a Chinese who's naturalized Marshallese who's running in the election and is pro-Beijing. I mean, it's that overt.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking that there was this idea of China gets control of everything on the one side of Hawaii. I mean, even though other than Guam and Saipan, the U.S. doesn't have territory there. I mean, that's ceding Asia to the Chinese Communist Party. What about Japan? What about South Korea, the Philippines, Taiwan? Obviously, we know how that goes. But yeah, that idea is just a horrifying world dominated by the Communist Party.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's their goal.
Yeah.
That's the goal. Again, for the good news, their leaders in the region really don't want that. So that's why you're seeing Philippines saying, maybe you do want to come back in the United States. Who would have thought that a couple of years ago? But they see what's going on, and they see how fast it's happening. And the Suidani thing, it really sent a chill through the region. They had been gunning for him since October 2019, and they got him. And the U.S., Australia, New Zealand didn't say anything, nothing. And there's no major news reporting about what the implications are at all. Started trying to, paint him as a pro-independence guy. So basically saying he's a troublemaker, and so we can get rid of him. It's not. They did it. They did it. You guys. I mean, you're the only ones that have talked to Suidani. In the U.S., as far as I know. So there have been no support along the way, and there's no support now. And those who are fighting the Marshallese election based on all of those principles that we talked about and not taking Chinese money see that, and they're scared. And more important, the people who are vacillating are trying to think about what's in it for me. If I back the pro-democracy guy, what am I get nothing for my family. I might get fired. I might not be able to pay my school fees, whatever. If I go with the Chinese, at least I know I'll be able to pay the rent this month.
Right. Unless the U.S. steps in and freezes the bank accounts of people, who are laundering money, et cetera, and then it totally changes the calculus, right?
Yeah.